I think it's okay. So, as it was mentioned in the introduction, I've been doing cycling stuff for quite a while. And when you do something for a long time, you build up confidence and experience, and that can be a little bit of a dangerous thing, because the more confidence you have, I think the more confidence you have to be a little bit reckless or foolish with how you go about planning said trips or so on and so forth. So about 3 years ago, I planned a trip with one of my buddies, and I say planned. Our plans for said bicycle trip were that we were going to start in Savannah, Georgia. We bought train tickets. I was living in Philadelphia at the time. We bought train tickets from Philly to Savannah on the Amtrak train. And so we bought train tickets to Savannah and got our bikes down there. And we bought plane tickets from New Orleans 10 days later, and planned nothing else in between. Again, confidence experience being a dangerous thing. So we got down to Savannah, we got on our bikes. The other thing I'll say is that the confidence and experience also gave us this air of, like, I think romanticism or sort of excitement about what it would be like to travel with no plans, which also was total bullshit. So we start riding from Savannah, and we decided we didn't really want to pay for camping at all on the whole trip. So we pull off the road about 40 miles south of Savannah on day one, and we're like, oh, where are we going to camp? We don't know, because we have no plans at all. And so we kept biking by fire roads, and we're like, how about that one? And we're both kind of scared Yankees, college educated, not really broken the law much in our lives. And so we're like, no, not that one. That one's not good. No. And so after, 30, 40 minutes of passing by fire roads and turning them down, we're like, it's getting dark, we got to choose one. So we stop, we camp for the night. Neither of us slept well at all. Totally terrified. We get up the next day, we keep cycling. Still with the plan, we're like, all right, we can do this. We'll get there. And so the second day, we're riding, and we're about 20 miles into the ride. And all that day, the scenery had kind of changed from, like, really pretty Spanish moss and big, beautiful houses to like trailer parks and Confederate flags, and we're feeling less and less comfortable in that setting, and that was fine, but then the pit bulls come. So we start getting chased by this pit bull down this road with trailer parks and Confederate flags and all that. And it's kind of like that scene in Jurassic Park where there's like one velociraptor, and the guy's like fighting the one velociraptor, and then he turns around and there's another one like right behind him that's been fucking with him the whole time. So there's this one pit bull on my right hand side that's chasing me, and I'm riding, and I'm wearing clipless pedals, so my feet are clipped in to the pedals. So I unclip my right foot and I get ready to kick the pit bull, and just as I'm ready to kick him in the face, there's a second pit bull on my left-hand side, and that foot is still clipped into the bike. So I'm like, okay, I'm going down. They got me, like the velociraptors have won. So we kept riding, and the pit bulls didn't, luckily they were not the biting kind of pit bulls, at least in this instance. So we keep riding, and not more than 20 seconds later, we hit a dead end on the same road, no other turns to make, no exit, no way out. We are trapped by two very fast, very enthusiastic pit bulls. And there's a dead end, and there's a very well-posted no trespassing sign. So we're like, okay, pit bulls, no trespassing. And so we hem and haw there for a while because we don't know what to do. And we both turn to our smartphones. We're like, well, what are our options? Because we live in our smartphones. And there are no options because Google Maps says, this road keeps going. Like, there is no dead end. But there was. We weren't under the influence. There was a dead end. So eventually I'm like, well, it was with my friend Ben, and I'm like, Ben, I'm just going to like look. Google Maps says that there's a road. So maybe there is a road, and like maybe we just can't see it or something. So I'm just going to go a little bit. I'm just going to like scout it out and see what's going on. So I get not more than like 1 or 2 steps into the brush beyond this dead end when I hear someone shout, and they're like, didn't you see the sign? And I'm like, oh crap. And there's this man coming out of the house, and he looks to be, he's kind of one of those people that like, in all actuality, he's probably like 50, but he looks like he's like 89. Like he's lived a really hard life. He's wearing camo overalls, and he's pointing a pistol at me. I'm from Long Island, New York. I don't think I had seen a real gun at this point in my life, except on TV. And so he's walking up to me and he's shouting at me. And he's like, what the hell are you doing? Didn't you see the sign? You're trespassing. And I'm like, oh, shit. So he gets right up to me, pointing the pistol. And we're like, hey, man. And we're wearing, like, bright neon cycling jackets. Like, emergency yellow. I'm like, you think we're trying to rob you in the brightest colors? It's just, like, not smart. And so he raises his fist, and I can see in his eyes he's, like, really shaky, and that he's, like, really afraid. He puts the pistol back in his overalls, and he raises his fist as if he's going to punch me. And in that moment, you start to go into a little bit of that fight or flight response. And so I work as a therapist with children, so my modus operandi is not to punch someone back. But I had a moment where I had to decide what to do. Am I gonna, this guy looks like he's 89, I can probably take him. For the moment, the pistol's in his overalls, or are we gonna try and talk him down? And so we keep our arms raised, we explain that we are just desperately lost Yankees. We could really use some help. We're really, really sorry for stepping on his land. And I can tell this guy is just like a little bit batshit gun crazy. And so we're slowly talking to him, slowly backing away. And he basically lets us go. And we get back on our bikes, and we get away, we get like out of what we think is gunshot range from him. And then we're like, okay, so now the pit bulls. So we start ramping up, and we're like, let's just ride as fast as we can. I think this is the fastest I've ever ridden on a bike. I've been in races, but I'm pretty sure that like 200-meter stretch in southern Georgia was the fastest I've ever ridden. And we pumped, and the pit bulls didn't come back. They were gone. So we keep riding. And Ben starts telling me this story about how he thinks he was kind of invisible because, like, his grandfather was invisible. It was all kind of bullshit. Like, when you have someone point a gun at you, you really just talk shit. So I stopped listening to him pretty quickly. And so the one place that we had planned to stay on our 10-day trip, 700 miles across what they call the Redneck Riviera. I apologize to any rednecks in the audience. I don't mean to offend anybody, but that's what they call that stretch of Florida that we were heading towards. But the one place we had planned to stay was a place called the Hostel in the Forest, which is about 60 miles south of Savannah near Macon, Georgia. And we had made reservations there. So we get to the Hostel in the Forest, and we barely missed the we almost missed the hand-painted sign from the main road, but we find it. We have to get off our bikes to a dirt road. We walk down with our bikes a little ways, and we come to this like hut-shaped dome place with lots of trees and plants and things, and there's a man outside, and he's about 6'4", with long hair, and he's wearing a sarong, and he sees us walking up, and he says, "Welcome," and he raises his arms and like embraces me in probably the most necessary hug I've ever had in my life. And so we settle into our treehouse at the hostel in the forest. And we come down, we shower, we come down later for dinner. We let them know what just happened, that we were just held at gunpoint by a maniac. And before dinner, they all hold hands and talk about something. I think like something they're grateful for, you know, one of those things. And it was so absolutely lovely. And my mind was reeling with the contrast of this man who was clearly influenced by a sense of ownership of his land and guns and all that jazz, and then these other folks in the trees who are just sharing the love and making me feel so warm and welcome. And they have this meditation studio that's all glass, like in the middle of the forest lake thing. So I sat in there for a while, and just really encouraged me to reflect, and I think Ben too, the friend I was with, encouraged us to reflect on sort of what influence we wanted to have. So we finish up the trip. There's a lot of other stuff that happens, and we come back, and Ben is so inspired. He leaves his job at University of Delaware, where he did GIS mapping. And he's like, you know what, my family has a farm, I'm going to move back there, I'm going to start a hostel in the forest in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So if you're ever up in Gettysburg, there's a place called Mud College, and Ben Burns is there, and you can tell him you heard this story. And you know, I went on to do other stuff too, but I come back to that as a pivotal, you know, partly because it was very memorable, but there's this moment in my life where it was so clear in the same day, the choice of, you know, do you want to live in hate and fear and that sort of way of thinking, or do you want to like risk loving people and risk getting hurt? And I hope I always choose to risk getting hurt. So thanks.